one of the most grappling cases this year has been the killing of Breonna Taylor. I'm sure you're well aware of everything going on there. I would love to get your thoughts, because a grand juror contended in a court filing that the discussions were inaccurately characterized and filed a motion for the Kentucky Attorney General's office to release the transcripts of the panel's recordings, which they have granted. What do you think will actually come out of this, though?
You know, here's the kicker to that. A lot of grand jury proceedings are not recorded. So I'd be curious to find out if that is the full and complete rendition of the transcript of the proceedings. I'm very familiar with grand jury proceedings. That was one of the very first things you had to do when I went to the district attorney's office. First, you had to work indictments, which means read boxes and boxes of police reports, and you, the lawyer, figure out what should be charged. Is this an ag assault? Is it a robbery? Is it a simple assault? And figure that out. Then you, the lawyer, draw up the indictment, including the charges you believe should be presented to the grand jury. I'm curious, what charges exactly were presented to the grand jury? Because I'm telling you, that is up to the prosecutor. The grand jury is made up of typically people off the voter registration list or residents in that jurisdiction. They don't have a law degree and a specialty in criminal law. So they are handed this, usually one witness, and they're handed this bill of indictment. And the witness makes out a case, and hearsay is allowed in grand jury. And then they vote. It's just that simple. So I'm curious, what are the facts and evidence and the legal claims that were presented to the grand jury?
And let's say they get released and we find that these charges were not what we all thought that they were going to be, and this and that. Is there some way to remedy that? Or is it that the decision has been done and now we just know the truth? I mean, is there any way to bring this back to court?
It's like putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. But in this case, if there is anything amiss, it can be remedied, because an independent investigation can take care of that. If there is anything amiss, I believe that the feds will likely jump in. Now, this is a kicker. I remember my first child prostitution ring that I prosecuted and took to trial. I worked with 3 vice officers for months trying to put the case together. It was really hard to do. Nobody would talk. You couldn't find any of the children. They were all being moved around. Finally, we found the little girl we were looking for. She was 13. I went in a room at a flop house, and I guess she's in there. I'm like, no, she's not. Where? She's not in there. They went, oh, it's the one in the white boots. I went back in. She looked like a 35-year-old woman with the hair and the makeup and the push-up and the this and the that. Long story short, the case involved these 3 cops that I'd worked with every day for months. Fast forward, conviction. I was minding my own business in my office, putting together a trial, and I looked up and I saw federal sketch artist rendition of 3 cops in federal court that had been stung, that were robbing dope dealers of all their plasma TV and their gold chains and their money and their dope and their everything. And I went, wow. I can't tell because it was a federal sketch artist, which are awful.
Yeah.
I went, wow, that sure looks like them. Well, it was. And they had been robbing dopers for God only knows how long. I never had a clue. My point is, just like with the general population, there are going to be bad cops. And it ruins the reputation of every other decent cop on the beat. I can also tell you all this drama about a no-knock provision. There will be no-knock provisions. For instance, what if a grown man had a 5-year-old little girl inside being held hostage, and he had been molesting her for days and days and days and was threatening to kill her? You don't think they'd break the door down and save that girl? Or would they go, excuse me, Mr. Kidnapper, can we invite you to a tea party? No, there will be no not provisions. Bam, end of story. So that's not going to stand up. Also, when police announce police before they break down your door, that's so they don't get shot.
Right.
If somebody fires at them, they are then allowed under the law to fire back. I'd like to see the ballistics reports. I'd like to find out who exactly shot a cop. Was it the doper in the house? Certainly was not Breonna. She's asleep.
Right.
Or was it friendly fire? I mean, there are just so many questions right now that we need answers to.